US citizen, accidental US citizen, green card holder needs to know. So first of all, if you're seeing this now, please give me a like or follow and turn on live notifications. Hopefully you can do this about once a week to give some basic information about US tax filing and other things that affect US citizens in Israel. So do you have an obligation to the US? Are you a US citizen? Do you have, even if you don't hold a passport, could you get a passport? If you are eligible for a passport, you're probably considered a US citizen or a green card holder, which has, for the most part, the same responsibilities. So if you were born in the US, for sure, you're considered a US citizen if you didn't give up your citizenship. If you are born to American parents who, for the most part, left the US over the age of maybe 18. I'm not an immigration attorney, and I'm going to go into the details of that in another video, hopefully. But generally, if your parents were living in the US until at least age 18, maybe 19, something like that, you're probably a US citizen, or your children are automatically US citizens. So a lot of people ask about, should I make my kids a US citizen? I'm going to talk about that in another video. But generally, there's a good chance the answer to that is you don't have a choice. So if you are a US citizen or a green card holder, you should be, these apply to you. Does anyone want to give me a thumbs up or comment on the sound quality? Because it wasn't so good earlier, but I got my thing here finally. Okay, hopefully it's better. So most US citizens, and when I say US citizens, I'm talking about all the people I just mentioned who have US requirements. All US citizens who are living outside the US usually have 2 filing responsibilities every single year. Hey, Esther, thanks. Glad you can hear me. Hi, Samantha. Thanks for joining us. You have 2 responsibilities every year. Number 1 is a tax return. Return is just another word for report. It doesn't mean you're getting anything back. If you get money back, we call that a refund. So the tax return is another word for report. We also call this Form 1040 or IRS Form 1040. That's the form number for the individual tax return that you probably need to file every single year. So that's number 1. And number 2, responsibility that most people need every single year is called an FBAR. It stands for Foreign Bank and Financial Account Report. It's also known as FinCEN Form 114. It's not going directly to the IRS. It's a different branch of the Treasury Department. It's often confused with FATCA. It's not exactly FATCA, but if you have to tell your bank you need it for FATCA, go for it. As long as you get the information, I don't really care what you tell them. It's not exactly FATCA. The FBAR has been around much, much, much longer than FATCA. It's just that these things, people are only more recently understanding that they need to do these things, but it's nothing new. So back to the tax return. When is it due? The tax return, if you grew up in the US, you probably have nailed into your brain April 15th. So pretty much ignore that date. Don't ignore it. Get an accountant by that date. Send them as much as you can. File an extension if you need one. But it's, for the most part, April 15th, your accountant, if you live outside the US, is very unlikely to have your tax returns done by then. Doesn't make them a bad accountant. It's just not going to happen because you're not getting your documents in time. So you get an automatic extension to June 15th when you're living abroad. Okay, so June 15th is really the big hard date that you need to be thinking about. Hopefully you're getting your accountant as much as you can before that. Hopefully you picked an accountant in Israel long before that. And I'm going to talk in another video about how to choose an accountant, but in general, I say if you're living abroad, you really should have a professional US accountant in Israel. If you want more information about that, if you're really happy using your favorite uncle who lives in New York, give me a call and I'll explain a little more details about why you want someone in Israel. And it doesn't need to be me, please. I'm really busy. I just want the information out there. Find somebody in Israel. So the due date, if you don't do anything but live outside the US, is June 15th. You can get an extension very easily for that, and there's no stigma in getting an extension. You can apply for an extension until October 15th. And if you have a professional accountant, most likely they're going to get you an extension. It's very easy. Make sure you're in touch with them. Make sure they're very clear that that you want that they're doing your taxes. But generally, they're going to do that every single year. And that gives you till October 15th. If you really need it, and I mean really need it, don't just procrastinate, please. You can get an additional 2 months. But we try to save those for the people that need it because they have companies abroad, or they're waiting for a social security number for their children. You must have, if you want to claim children on a tax return, you must have a social security number by the due date of the tax return with extensions. So that's another reason that we might need to get you another extension. Do you need a tax return? Okay, so that's when it's due. You know when it's due. Do you need one? So if you're single and I'm talking about right now only 2018 numbers. If you haven't filed in a while, I'm going to do another video about that, or you can call me up and see if you need a tax return in previous years. For 2018, if you're single, your threshold is $12,000 of worldwide income. For US citizens, we are always looking at worldwide income. You don't need any connection at all with the US, okay? And I want to give you a second to let that sink in, because for a lot of people I talk to, it just seems too crazy to be true. It seems like too much of a burden to be true, but it is. And the reason it seems kind of crazy is because the US is very unique in this requirement that even once you leave the US, even if you never lived in the US, you must report worldwide income. So that's one thing unique. So if you are single and you made in wages, you're employed, and you made in wages or in investments, whatever you have, over $12,000, you must file a tax return. If you are a married couple filing jointly, both of you are US citizens, you have $24,000. Pretty easy to do that. 12,000, 12,000. But it doesn't have to be, it doesn't matter who earned how much. If you are married to someone who is not a US citizen, the threshold is $5 this year. When I first looked it up, it seemed I was looking for the extra zeros. It's never been so low before. It's always been a little bit of a burden on people who choose to file separately, but $5. So, speak with your accountant if you're earning any money at all and you're married to a non-citizen. If you are self-employed, the threshold is also very low. It's $400 for the year of any self-employment. And that's because that's the one place you may actually owe taxes. If you are atzma'i, that's the Israeli word for independent, freelance work, whatever you want to call it, small business, even if you don't feel like you have a business. If you do any work that is not paid for through an employer, we consider that self-employed. And if you do that over $400, babysitting, very lucrative lemonade stand, you do need to file a tax return and report that. So that is the one place you may owe money, and I'm going to do another video on if you're going to owe money and specifically about how much refund, if you're eligible for refunds. Most people don't owe money. So that's the tax return. If I'm not seeing any questions, but I am keeping an eye out. So if you do have questions, go ahead and comment. Thanks for joining. Okay, so let's talk about the FBAR now. The FBAR, as I said, it stands for Foreign Bank and Financial Account Report. This is another requirement that most people living outside the US need to file. And this reports your bank accounts and financial accounts, any sort of financial account. So the tax return reports income. Income is what you bring in each year. You work, you earn money. I don't care how you're earning it. If you earn money, that's income. Someone could be paying you in rice. They could be paying you into an account anywhere in the world, anywhere in the universe. You are getting some sort of a benefit for something you're doing or for investments, assets you hold. That's income. The FBAR reports not income, but what is sitting in your accounts or in accounts that you could touch. So I like to describe it as how much money can a US citizen touch during the year. It's not an accurate representation of your net worth. Okay, so if you have, first you want to look at your own accounts. That's very obvious. So you look at all of your accounts outside the US. So usually if you're living in Israel, you have at least one bank account. You include 100% of any accounts you own jointly. You include any pensions, Karen Hishtalmut, which is an Israeli savings fund, any sort of funds or investments or any financial account that has a redeemable value, a cash out value, not an insurance that only that's only in death or something like that, or catastrophic injury. We're talking about something with a cash out value. You add all those together. If the total of all the highest balances, not the year-end balances, but look at your bank account, find the highest balance during the year, add all your accounts together, if the total is the equivalent of $10,000, which is around 36,000 shekels, you need an FBAR, okay? Once you meet the threshold, you need to report all your accounts. You also need to keep in mind for these, if you have signature authority on an account. So if you have signature authority, which is also known as Yipui Koach, on a parent's account, a Vad Habayit account, a company account, anything where you can touch the money or have some sort of signing authority or access to the money, probably needs to be reported. So you add them all together. So you might always be in the negative, but you have access to your parents' account, not access, but signing authority, just in case they need you in the future, you might have signing authority on their account. You do need to include that. So that's the FBAR. The due date for the FBAR, if you look it up online, you're going to see April 15th, but in small print, you can get an automatic extension till October 15th. And you don't need to do anything for that extension. So for all practical purposes, your extension, it's due October 15th. Please don't file after that. If you can help it in any way, shape, or form, file something by October 15th. Because the penalties for not filing or late filing, the non-willful penalties, that's if you can say it's not my fault, I didn't know for whatever reason, they start at $10,000. So it's very serious. I don't see these penalties a lot. I don't want you to go freaking out, but it's serious enough you want to take it, pay attention to it. If you've never filed an FBAR before, don't race out and file one. Speak with a professional first and make sure you're getting an appropriate program. And I think one of the next topics I will talk about in a future video will be what to do if you've never filed before and what programs are open to you. As I mentioned earlier, I had actually scheduled this for 12:30, and I'm just indulging anyone who got the time wrong. But I'm going to cut this here. I did do another one at 12:30, but the sound hopefully is much better on this one anyway. I also mentioned in the earlier one about gift reporting, and you can call me if this applies to you. If you give any individual a gift over $15,000, or if you receive over $100,000 from someone who's not a U.S. citizen, there's no tax there, but reporting is required. Speak with your accountant about that and about the details, investments. There's a lot of other things that could need reporting, but these are the very general basics that most people need each year. Again, thank you so much for joining me. If you don't already like or follow my page, please do. When this closes, I think you'll have the opportunity to choose get live notifications. So if you want to do that, hopefully you'll see when I go live again. If you want to comment with anything you'd like to hear more about in the future, please do. I'd also really like to know if there's a time that you guys would like that's better for you. I prefer the day because the lighting's much better here, but any time that I'm happy to indulge you, I would like to make this a somewhat regular thing. So thanks so much.